Let me introduce our speaker today. We're going to have a conversation. It's not a presentation. So hopefully we'll keep this engaged. We'll keep all of you engaged. Nivedita O is a Senior Director of Product Management at Citrix. She's been a product strategy advisor for C-level executives, and she's got an amazing track record working with cross-functional teams in coming up with and even executing very innovative and profit-generating products, right? So she's worked both for Fortune 500 companies as well as venture-backed companies. And I'm sure right now. Thank you for joining us from the US, Nivedita, and you've worked across the continents, globe, if you will, Europe, South America, and Asia. Very happy to have you here and share with us your insights on the topic of future of work and Gen Z, and especially how Gen Z will influence building of enterprise SaaS applications, right? So my background is SaaS applications for enterprises, so I'm more keen than I'm sure to learn a few insights from you. But before we get into the conversation, I want to a little understand the quote that we asked you. What is your favorite quote? One of the favorite quotes that you have. And you quoted a pretty interesting one I wrote of Nelson Mandela, right? There is no passion to be found playing small, in settling for a life that is less than the one that you're capable of living. Now, can you, help us, peel that very profound quote that seemed to have influenced you a bit?
Absolutely. Thank you first for giving me this opportunity. Actually, I heard from someone a similar quote, which explains this one even better. When we start our careers, we have some aspirations and inspiration, and we want to go in a certain direction. However, during this path that we chart, there will be folks who will try to dissuade us, or who will try to unknowingly put barriers around us. And the point that I'm trying to make is, nobody can define who I am or who you are. It's up for us to define who we are. And so it's for us to open the doors that we want to open. And let's not contain all the abilities that we have and believe in somebody else telling us that we can or cannot do. So that's why this quote from Nelson Mandela actually really resonates, because it's up to us what path we want to chart. It is, we all have capabilities that is infinite, and we should make use of our capabilities and just go and think big and just live that dream and go get it done. That's the whole point.
Amazing. I think Nelson Mandela, probably distilled that, his lifetime contributions into that quote, it seems like to me, right? So in that context, I think many folks are currently, I'm sure, what is going on, a big part of their thinking is around COVID situation, right?
Yes.
Now I think, what I would like to do is take a poll of the audience in terms of what they are thinking about whether their career would be impacted. A lot of stuff going on, both positive and negative, as much as we try to stay positive. So, maybe a poll will help us understand perspectives from the audience today on what is the impact of COVID on their careers, right? So while the audience gives their view on it, I think we will launch into the specifics of the discussion today.
Sure. But it's interesting to see.
I know, it's
and I can totally understand what's going on, and I can really this whole fear resonates.
Yeah.
And all I'm going to say is that in my career, this is the third time I'm seeing a downturn. Actually, the first downturn, I just started my career. So the first one that I saw, and every time it seems, oh, this is small, or this is big, or this is worst. Everyone is unique.
Yeah.
And you have to stay positive. You have to find what I've been trying to say to everybody, figure out what's the one good act you can do for the day. And use that to propel your day and be positive, because these are difficult times, and everybody is going through a tough time. So if you can do one act of goodness for
Yeah.
that day and
Yeah.
start the day, it will change the way you think.
Great advice. I think that's easily actionable, simple and actionable. That can do it. Looks like we have a lot more optimistic people on the call today, which is a great thing to have. So getting into it, I think the world is, of course, changing at a dizzying pace, right? I mean, there are way too many things that have been happening even before COVID, right? So in terms of the impact that's having on economy, jobs, flow of talent, things like globalization, economy, artificial intelligence, robotics, and now, of course, COVID, right? But more in our context, in terms of products, in the world of products, right? I think two topics, and hence the genesis of these topics, right? How do you see the future of the work and workforce, right? So we'll start with what do we even mean by a future of work? Now, I'm completely mystified by this Gen Z for one reason, that we are run out of alphabets now. I don't know what to do.
I agree.
But you should just demystify this Gen Z, especially for us Indians, who we've heard baby boomers, millennials, X, Y, Z. So, and why, and we'll get into that, right? But we'll start with, let's say, how do you see a future of work being different from what it is today?
So actually, let's step back a little bit. Digital transformation was happening. And as I started really looking into what does digital transformation really mean, work had changed the way we anticipated it to be. What does that mean also is not everybody is always going to an office. Let's take sales teams, especially in enterprise. Sales teams can be in an Indian scenario, the headquarter could be in Bangalore for Infosys or for Wipro. However, they need to have a sales team, whether it's in Colorado, whether it's in California, whether it's in Japan. So now how do you stay connected with these teams that are located across the globe? You are still sharing your product roadmap with them. You're still sharing your product insight. You as a product manager are trying to get more data on what the customer is thinking as a future so that you can formulate your product roadmap or you can formulate the next innovation. So teams have been changing quite significantly for quite some time. And then more and more what's happening is previously we used to call it offshoring to some country. Actually, it's no longer an offshoring. We are at a certain stage in our economy and our evolution of just technology and product that we need to have talent. And talent means it's not just about knowing the product. It is also and a technology. It's understanding the market. It's understanding the nuances of how customers behave. It's what I had if you remember a couple of months ago when I did my session on design thinking, I talked about human-centric. At the end of the day, who's using the product? It's not animals. It's we are using the product. We're humans. Yep. So it's very important to understand how lifestyle, how working condition, personas basically are different in every country, in every place. And there are certain norms, local norms. So all of this becomes very important when you're defining your workflows, you're defining your workplace. And so digitalization and future of work is now about talent. It is about understanding the personas. It is being aware and empathizing with what is needed for making your work more engaging and more productive.
I think when you say that at the end of it, there is a human, right? So many of us get caught into B2C product, B2B product, but at the end of it, in every thing, there is a B2H, right? There is a human at the end of it. And essentially looking at that, understanding that human, understanding that person, understanding the pain points and challenges you're saying is going to be even more important than what it has been before, right? So
absolutely. And let's ask, if you want to take a poll, how many of us are using only a single device? Hardly. all of us are on multiple devices on a regular basis, right?
Yeah,
I mean, at least a laptop and a phone, especially in a technology space. And why technology? You talk to somebody in finance, they do that. You talk to verticals, you talk to retail. Today, everybody is minimum using at least 2 devices in the knowledge world.
Yeah.
Now, how do you interact? Because you're shifting from one device to the other.
Right.
I could be on a LinkedIn on my mobile, and then very second, I need to respond to somebody, but it's on a laptop or a tablet. So this whole conversion of so many devices needs to happen very seamlessly, very fluid. So it doesn't matter what age, what generation I am in. I need to make this whole interaction very seamless, very easy. Like recently, I just talked about, whether I'm on a Zoom on my phone, whether I'm a Zoom on my laptop or on my tablet, it's got to work impeccably.
Yeah.
I've got to be able to see you, Sai, on the other side and have a conversation with you. So
in a way, you're saying that, remote working, it doesn't matter where the person comes from, where the person lives, which part of the world, which of course we're seeing this more and more. Now, I'm sure there are triggers in a market and in our country, in the world right now, that are accelerating that, right? So, and that's one part of what you call as future of work. Are there any other elements of what you see dramatically being different, or at least even incrementally being different in a few years from now? And I'm assuming we are talking in the context mostly about knowledge workers, or are they applicable to other sectors as well, other ways of work?
So a very interesting point. So when I was doing this research for Citrix specifically, this is almost now 18 months ago. So the world had not changed so rapidly. We knew that certain things were changing. So gig economy was happening. We all know when Uber drivers came, or when somebody's putting Airbnb homes, that's a kind of gig economy.
Yeah.
So if you look at them, they're really not knowledge workers. Most of them are, if you talk about their task workers. Having said that, every Uber driver, every Ola driver, whatever, has a mobile device. So the point over here is it's no longer task or knowledge worker. There used to be a device, digital divide, which I call the device divide. That is fading away. Yeah, maybe the Ola driver may not have the smartest iPhone that you have. It doesn't matter. However, they're connected, and that is the big point. And the fact that they're connected, they can go today, they can drive, they know where to pick up. It's based on a text, whatever it is. So the digital divide is reducing. So it doesn't matter whether you're a task worker or a knowledge worker. It's only time. Yeah, go ahead, Sai.
That's a very interesting point. I think, the access to devices, access to connectivity, access to cheap data packs, like in, companies that offered in India, brought millions of people online. And as a result, the need and demand for services and even applications. So, segueing into applications of, what kind of applications and what does that even mean for the applications that companies are building for these people? So what's your perspective on that?
So that's where, so before I talk about application, I just want to say that if you saw in India, especially WhatsApp has become a very, very formidable application, whether I need to call my doctor and quickly check. I will give you an interesting story with WhatsApp. So about 18 months ago, almost 2 years ago, I lost my dad. So that period where I was with him, and I was in India, in Bombay, he suddenly had fibrosis of his lungs, and there was a constant need for sending, all his reports to the doctor. I know that at times, somebody will say, why would you use, WhatsApp? But we were in a really short time where some days he was getting like a panic attack. And so sending reports, and instead of really walking the doctor through the report, when I sent it through WhatsApp, the doctor would call and say, oh, just administer this, or just check this and let me know, or watch his, something right now. Also, if you think about it, his symptoms are not very different from what's happening with some of the COVID respiratory issues with COVID patients. So if you notice, they're being asked to have a oxygen monitor. It was the same thing. And so doctors need may not be able to visit you because of this condition. However, telemedicine has become a big thing.
Yeah.
Recently, when I was, so as part of staying at home, we're all saying, but we need to be healthy. We need to be focused on our health and keep our immune system high. I went for a bike ride, and for whatever reason, my bicycle got stuck on train tracks and I fell down and had a mild concussion. So during that time, I was not going to go to the hospital or see the doctor. I just called her and we did a quick telemedicine. She sent a text message. We got on a video chat. She saw me, saw the bruises, and it was gone. So the world is changing every day. So applications are changing also every day. And I think communication with a device for everybody is happening. It doesn't matter whether you're a task worker or a knowledge worker. In terms of apps, your apps are all about, if you look at enterprise space, more and more collaboration, more distributed teams. So the way it's going to be, it's no longer going to be, there are some companies that I'm advising, it's no longer going to be in the way like Sai and Nivedita come together to review some document. And so for Sai, it's 9 p.m. in India, whereas it's 7 a.m., which is, if you think about it, we're both working at extreme hours to try to fit in just to have the conversation. Versus now they're building software where Sai can go in, put in his comments, and Sai doesn't need to be online when I'm online, and I could start reviewing those comments and putting my comments back on it. And we're just collaborating. And if it's desperate where I'm like, Sai, I think this coding is totally wrong, or I'm confused, that's when we come together, we get ourselves on a Zoom. However, there is just a written collaboration where you and I don't have to brainstorm. We're going to start seeing folks not wanting to always come on these odd hours trying to fit each other's schedule. So there are companies, it's called Loop, they're building some cool tools for distributed teams. So you are seeing, and all of this was happening even before COVID, it's just that with COVID, it's
the acceleration. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Now, please demystify this Gen Z for us, right? I mean, the only thing that I know is they are digital natives, but often we have a very disparaging view of digital natives in this country, but I'm not one of them, but I'm sure it's a fascinating segment to look at. But please go ahead and give us your perspectives on Gen Z, and then why we should pay attention to this particular set of folks who are coming in now into workforce, especially.
Absolutely. So let's go back first to generations. In India, it doesn't match so much, but it does match a little bit. So it's mainly more of a Western world. So you had the baby boomers, these are the 60s. Then you had the Gen X, which is a very small sliver, both in India and in the most of the West. Then there was the millennials that came after that. And most of the millennials are what they call the social media, group with all the Facebook and Twitters. That's where that generation. And then the ones that are what I call is mainly Gen Xers kids, and that's the Gen Z. Now, if you think about their behaviors and pattern, most of them were born after the first recession. After 2002, I mean, when I mean first recession in my life, okay? I'm sorry.
Not the 1914 one,
Exactly.
1997 one you're talking about.
The first recession of an adult life for me, when I started working. So they are the first generation that started, they were born after 2002. And so they started their life, they were very young. And then when they were about 8 or 10, they experienced the other second recession. That was the big recession of 2008. So these kids are aware of life is not that rosy all the time from a very young age. Having said that, they're also were born literally with a mobile device in their hand. So for them, it's like I say, the way we grew up with a home phone, it's literally like that. They grew up with a phone now in their hand. It's a different, it was landline versus now my personal.
It just happens to be a phone. It's everything else more than that.
Yes. But there's a little difference. The landline, if you think about it, was a community device.
Yes.
Yeah, stood in the house. Every member in the house could use it. You made a call, and that's it. It's only a communication device.
Yeah.
This one is now a personal device. It's no longer collaboration. Okay, it's my personal.
Yeah.
I've got everything that relates to my persona, my behaviors, my attributes. So my device is not going to look any close to your device.
It expresses the individuality of that person.
Exactly. So that is number one. Then the way I use it is very different. Okay. And also when you think about it, somebody will say, you know what, I don't like iPhone. I want a Samsung device, or I want whatever other Android device is there. So Lenovo. So it's, everybody has also a preference of how the device looks and feels. Yeah. So it is this whole, it's really my personality is coming on that device. So I'm extending.
In that perspective, in that context, do you think that there are habits that are very different of this generation, that Generation Z, than the previous ones using the devices?
Absolutely. Because also think of it. Do they really know about floppy disks? No. Do they need to know about that? No, I still remember verbatim floppies. I used to put it, store my software.
I'm pretty sure half of our audience wouldn't know this, by the way. I'm just taking
if they are millennials and Gen Zs, probably they don't. Yeah, exactly. So the whole concept of floppy disk is out, but that's where I started writing or learning whatever I had to, right? Now these kids know everything is, to them, storage is not a, is not an issue. For us, I grew up where storage was an issue. So that's number one.
Sure.
Number two is also a very simple application difference, which started with Google. And now I see even Office 365 has put it. So before I tell you what that difference is, I will tell you a little story.
I'm curious.
So my sister works at a hospital, and she has an intern come in who's a Gen Z or millennial at that border. And the kid is constantly putting in the data, and then comes back next day, puts in the data. And then my sister's noting there's some frustration on the third day. And she's like, what's going on? She's like, every day I come in and I put in the data, and the data is gone. Every day I come in, I put in the data is gone. So she goes, says, there's something called save button. You're supposed to save.
I was gonna.
So here's the thing, working with Google and G Suite, they're so used to auto save.
Auto save, no save.
That's the notion for them.
I think it's a brilliant example. Absolutely. Yeah.
And you think about it, it is the most easiest thing that should happen. And I want to now, even when I'm sometimes working on Office 365, if it is the SaaS version of it, I'm glad that it's autosave. But if I'm not on the SaaS version and I'm working on the one that's on my device, I have to go thinking, oh, I've got to save it. Whereas when I'm working with Google Suite, I'm not saving. It's just all automatically saved. So it really made a simple automatic save has made our life so much easier. So these behaviors.
I think there are several such examples that one can think of on this, and I'm sure that is getting reinforced, or rather they're used to some very popular consumer applications that on the devices, right? I'm pretty sure all of these folks are on some weird social networks that most of us are not on, including TikToks and whatnot. And that experiences, those design, those stuff is now going to carry forward into enterprise applications. So does that mean that we need to now start thinking enterprise applications from a consumer experience perspective, which used to be quite different, right? And
so that is where what I call the consumerization of enterprise application. And so this generation is helping us really simplify the applications, because when they come to the workforce, they're not interested in using the legacy applications that we are being used to. And if you notice, whether it's Adobe, whether it's Salesforce, though they were built in cloud, Salesforce specifically, everybody is changing the experience part of how they interact, how, so that's why the whole concept of bots, coming into applications. Messaging. If you think about Facebook, now that Facebook has launched Facebook Workplace, bringing elements of that consumerization in enterprise. You will see there is notifications which started from a mobile device is now becoming a part of every enterprise. In Citrix, we're building a product called the Intelligent Workspace, and it's to reduce all this multiple transitioning from one app to the other app, because you go to an email, you get an email, you click on that, from there it goes to Ariba or Workday. We're reducing all that approvals and multiple workflows by simple notification. Right. So notification comes from this generation, this use cases that is enabling all these changes in enterprise. So it's really human-centric.
So there are a few things that you touched upon, right? So one is taking certain things for granted because that's how they started experiencing the applications, right? So one example that you said is storage is never a concern anymore, right? I can take as many pictures as I want, videos as I want, and there is enough storage on the devices to do that. The other example that you brought in is messaging, right? So they are so used to messaging that now embedding that capabilities into enterprise applications, you're saying is a very important consideration, and many apps are already doing that, right? And the third one, of course, constantly being able to be notified, right? So I need to know what's going on, in the know of things, right? So now, given, I'm sure there are a lot of such things in terms of their expectations or behaviors or habits, right? Now, how does a product manager or a business need to start thinking in terms of what kind of approach do we take to bring these into the products that we are building?
So this is a great question. And this is not just for this topic. And I say this, every product manager needs to always keep the antenna up every time. And observing and observation is very critical. So you need to always observe how a certain generation or how certain folks are working. And for example, especially parents and kids, we always kind of try to say, oh, this is how I did it at my time, and you're not doing it right. Instead of that, just go and ask them curiously, which I do very often. I ask my 14-year-old nieces, I want to know what applications are you using? And she'll be like,
why do you want to know? Exactly.
And I said, no, I want to see what you're doing at school. And then one day she sits with me and shows. No, she shows me. And it's very different from my world. And so now suddenly I see this app called Canvan is become the big go-to application, because she says at school, I need to build leadership products, which are leaflets, flyers to announce. And she takes the mobile device and she's sitting and quickly devices a whole leaflet for me in 15 seconds, literally. Pops in words, puts a video from TikTok and everything. And it looks like no better than any PDF document that you would have actually done on a laptop. And that's what you need to start observing, how they're using the device. Because when you will create these applications in the enterprise space, now you've got to start thinking in a different way. For the baby boomers or for the Gen Xers, we started from the laptop or a PC. We didn't even have, PC it was mainly. We didn't have a laptop. Okay. And then for the baby boomers, and then we came to laptops. Now, for these kids of this generation, it starts on the mobile. So it's mobile first. How do you now watch? So it's very key to observe what they're doing. Also do focus group study constantly. Don't push them away that, oh, this is not how it's done. Go the other way.
Absolutely. So one thing is, you're saying irrespective of any of these things, a good product manager should constantly keep observing the environment, users, and learning and seeing why they're doing it. But even more so now, because there is quite a bit of change in behaviors and expectations from this Gen Z. Now, how does this reflect, let's say, in terms of, we touched upon a few things, but Are there any specific areas of functionality or features that exist in the product today, most of the products, but are going to get more highlighted or spotlight on? Are there any specific things like that?
So one thing I will say, especially as an enterprise application developer, we as companies are always concerned about security. So security on the back end, security on the front end, and especially on applications where it's not just about putting an email, it's multi-factor, biometrics, all kinds of things, right? If I show you my product, even at Citrix, which I started 4 years ago, versus the product we are looking to, there are significant changes. And when I mean changes is because we are more security driven, we also made the app initially look like I put in an email, then it flips into something else, then I'm asked for some other attribution. Again, it flips. The flips were on and on and on. You give that kind of a flip to a Gen Z, you've lost them. They will never, and if they had their way, they'll never use the product. So now you've got to streamline. And so the backend integration of that security has to become much more leaner, easier. So the example that I tell everybody, when you update your Macs, have you noticed it starts updating and there's just a thin silver line that keeps on going. Everything is happening on the back end. You really don't need to go typing. Whereas there are other applications where it's updates and then they will ask you after 15 seconds, oh, now you need to add this. Then there's a little bit more happening. Then I need to add. You just lost that whole experience part of it. You just made it absolutely difficult. And what did you do? Oh God, do I need to update this again? I don't want to do it. And I've even had cases where, certain old apps, folks would say, do I really need to do a version control now? Because every time I do a version control, you take me 45 minutes and I'm locked out. Right? So that security, privacy is going to continue. And this generation doesn't care about it. However, we need to keep the check and balance. So we've got to find a balance between how that
but they are the ones I believe are going to make us more accountable than the previous.
Yes, absolutely.
They may not care if you explicitly ask them, would you trade your privacy for comfort and convenience? The answer most probably is going to be a resounding yes. But then when something goes wrong, they are the ones that are going to hold us accountable. So it's all the more important for enterprises to take that even more seriously now.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think, this notion of making it seamless and also rapidly changing, iterating along the way is not going to be practical for products that are not delivered through cloud, right? How do you see SaaS being the key motivator for all these things, or rather SaaS being the best way to do this, if you will?
In my opinion, actually, SaaS makes it easier, and SaaS is a driver, because when you think about especially a software scenario, our sprint levels, we're no longer doing a waterfall, right? We're all agile. So when you're in agile, you're talking about 2 to 3 weeks of sprint. And now also, and it's not just this generation, anybody now who's been using some of the consumer applications, let's say whether it's WhatsApp or LinkedIn, there are certain freshness everybody's expecting. Every time Android or iOS updates the user experience, you're expecting that the apps also upgrade themselves to fit in the new user experience. Sometimes, of course, some things may not work. However, the whole game and point is to make it easier and get more traction on those applications. So with the SaaS world, it just helps you to iterate faster. It helps you to make changes faster. Also, if a function doesn't work, because you can do a beta launch in a SaaS world through things like Launch.me. If it doesn't work, you can scrap it off faster. And if it works, you test.
Do you think the enterprises are taking this seriously and they are ready to make these changes? Because I believe that most of the time, such kind of mandates have to be top-down driven, right? From a strategy driven as opposed to individual teams making those decisions? Do you think enterprises are gearing up to this fact and or not enough?
So this is very interesting and important question. The reason why. So in the software world, when we are in Silicon Valley, yes, we're all moving, everybody's moving to cloud because implementations are faster, rollouts are faster, all of that. And if you see any new age startup that's being launched, it's all on cloud. It's all SaaS. Nobody's going on-prem. Where the challenge was are the older legacy companies, right? Somebody in automotive, somebody in heavy engineering or financial banking. Over there also with COVID, actually COVID has accelerated moving to cloud. Because when you're on-prem, you're not able to get into this remote workforce. You cannot, expand and grow fast and multiply. However, if you're on cloud, it's
well, you have constraints on your delivery channels, right? Your sales force, your partner ecosystem, and so SaaS might alleviate some of those things. Is what
it is. In fact, suddenly we're seeing the cloud uptake is a lot more faster because now folks who were always in the office have mandatorily and so it's important that you start making sure that you are you're scaling fast. That's the big point.
Okay. No, so that's interesting. So now I think, many of the product leaders in companies hopefully are taking notice of this and trying to put together strategies in place. And suddenly when you have to accelerate this, given current circumstances and also with the Gen Z coming into the workforce, are there any additional skill sets that you believe the product role people, especially product managers or senior in portfolio level managers, right? Product portfolio level managers need to start thinking about and building teams, building the skill sets within the teams around?
So I don't know about teams. Like I said, as a PM, you've got to be observant. As a PM, you want to be data driven. As a PM, you want to be very much aware of what's happening in the technology. You want to be on the pulse of, what trends are happening and changes are happening. So data, of course, is going to be even more important. And having a data science, somebody understanding data science in terms of what are the trends, what are the changes, what is it with machine learning we can do, all of that, how to add more intelligence into the product is going to be critical. I mean, sometimes, so here's a two-edged sword. The two-edged sword from my conversation with the Gen Z is, I don't mind the intelligence, however, do not make it such a strong part of the product that I have to use the intelligence. I need to have the ability to opt in and opt out of that intelligence.
Okay. So that's fascinating because, we are probably companies and products are thinking, how do I anticipate the next move of this person and provide it to them as opposed to them asking for it, which is, in a way, in alignment with the behaviors of this. But you're saying don't go overboard on that. They definitely want a control on saying that, don't anticipate my needs based on your intelligence that you're building into these products.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the classic example they keep on saying is Gmail. So like if I've written, hi, Sai, thank you for, and then
the
automatically
starts,
the predictive data starts coming. And that's where they said, sometimes I'll take it, but sometimes I want to write something and you have no idea. And it's got nothing to do with it's got something totally different. Maybe I want to say, Sai, I hope your mom is doing well.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Picking up because it's something else. So
providing that control is what you're saying. The balance needs to be.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And many products, in fact, there is a whole category of products called, the area called product-led growth, right? And which is now building ability to acquire new customers or users of that product and keep them engaged, baked into the product itself, right? So we have an interesting session coming up in next 2 days around that. But that's a new skill. That's a skill that that product managers need to start thinking differently, right? It's
Absolutely.
now baking in some aspects of marketing into that product itself. Yeah.
Yes, and marketing is very important in any way, because when you build a product, let's say in an enterprise space, how am I going to reach my audience? How am I going to message? What is the value of that product that differentiates? For example, why is Slack different from Zoom? Both are collaboration, but it's very different, right? And in my world today, working remote, I'm using both the tools, right? I'm using Slack because I'm constantly in collaboration. Do I really need that much of email? I'm not so sure, because I could really Slack and figure out, make changes very rapidly. And Zoom is when I want to have a face-to-face the way we are having, or when I want to be in this kind of a scenario where I'm in a fireside chat. So every tool is very important for how I'm working. One other thing is, during this whole shutdown period, I'm also discovering newer tools. I just came across a tool, like I told you, Loop is one, which is for distributed teams. So you don't have to be online all the time, and you can still get access to all the right content. And then you have Mural, where I could do brainstorm together using, I'm using digital sticky, and we used it. So there are so many new tools that are coming, which are enabling this remote workflow place. And so as a PM, I need to learn to use all these tools, or at least have an understanding to kind of being a product led.
Absolutely. No, I think before, tools are very interesting and solving specific problems, but even having a context of, a new way to approach things. Now, once you understand how to do that, once you have the skill, I would call it as a skill, because some of these need to be acquired, and not going through some, website and reading a blog about it or watching a view, but I think working with practitioners, working with people who are doing it, gaining that expertise and experience is very important. And then of course, there are these amazing tools that are coming up to say, oh, I need to do this. What is the best tool available? And get to that, right? So on the skills part, it's important to get it from the right place, learn it from the right people and all of that. But I have several people have asked me this question. I want your take on this. This is especially around mentoring and coaching, right? And before you answer that, I would like a quick poll from the audience. I hope, just to check that they're not eating their dinners and forgotten us. But do many people, what is the level of importance that some of you or many of you place on having a mentor or a coach to guide you through these transitions, right? Not just from being a product manager to now digital and start thinking and acquiring the skills, but even before that. So at least I personally benefited a lot from having some very good mentors. What's your take on this, Nivedita? What's the approach that you think people should take in getting some guidance?
So seeing the poll, I'm very surprised that there is, do you believe it says 49% said no? I'm very surprised by that. My personal view.
No, I mean, I think the poll says, do you have access to quality mentors?
Oh, do you have access? Oh, I didn't see that. Okay. Do you have access? Sorry. Okay. So they don't have access.
Which is not surprising, by the way. I think this is representative of general.
So having a mentor and a guide is extremely important. And so mentor and guides, just not for product, in general for your career, is very, very crucial to understand what transitions you want to make, what directions you want to go. And sometimes you may just decide, I just want to be in a flat line in my career and grow an expertise in that place. How do you make those decisions? And how do you know when is the right time to, from an engineer, I want to become a data scientist, or from a product manager, I want to get into more finance or operations. So it's very important to have somebody to bounce ideas, to somebody to get guidance, because I'm not saying that my experience is going to be the same as yours. However, having had experiences, I have some understanding of what's happening or what's not happening, and I can guide you, because there are certain behaviors that are happening that kind of in a human mind is very similar behavior. And it's very important how to understand, gauge who you're dealing with, who your audience is. So how do you do all of that? It's important to have a mentor and a coach. Yeah.
So I think absolutely true. And I completely agree with everything that you said around mentors and things. With that, I think we are very close to the top of the hour. So I'd like to really thank you, Nivedita, for joining us and sharing those insights. But before we go, I just wanted to announce the award for the best coach, best question that we've had, right? So let me just see if I can bring that up. So folks have been asking many questions, by the way, Nivedita. Unfortunately, we are not able to take all of that within the hour. And, during, I was trying to see if I can cover those questions as well in our conversation, and we did most of them. But I would request you to later on go to that thread, on the LinkedIn thread, and if you can answer some of the questions that folks have asked, that will be very good, right? And
Absolutely.
really appreciate you doing that. So I think, based on many of these questions, to me at least, the best question goes, award goes to Anand Raghavan for asking a very similar question that we touched upon, right? We said, look, consumerization of enterprise applications is real. You're right. However, is it a strategy driven from top, or is it an IT driven? It doesn't seem like IT can lead these things, because it needs a transformation, both in terms of mindset, in terms of operationalizing it, and in terms of the kind of people that you need. So and thanks for joining us today. Thank you again, Nivedita. Really appreciate you joining us.
I really appreciate this. Thank you. Bye-bye.